Right. Imagine you're the head of an HR team and you get asked to present the team's vision for the future workforce of the largest sportswear company in Europe. But instead of sitting down and putting together the usual dull PowerPoint slide presentation, you instead decide to make a James Bond style movie. You have the MD kidnapped, he's tied up, he's stuffed into a chest, and he does multiple takes until he's bruised and battered.
No, that's not the plot of some kind of comedy drama film. That's what actually happened at the world's second biggest sportswear company, Adidas, where our guest, Tony Cooke, was running HR.
The idea we had was that we'd make it into a movie in a James Bond sort of way. And we brought in our own people to be actors, whereby the MD was actually hijacked and kidnapped. And he played his part. And he was a good sport. He was a great sport because it meant he had to be tied up and rumbled into an old chest somewhere. And we had to do about 4 or 5 different takes. And he was full of cuts and bruises at the end of it.
Tony spent 20 years transforming HR from the inside out, creating everything from Oscars to speed dating for talent. His approach was so successful that other markets started to copy his initiatives without asking permission. And he did all this without a huge budget. In fact, it often cost nothing.
And I have to tell you how cost-effective the HR team were when we done this video. Because when we brought a group in from our production team from outside, he felt that we would need 6 barely hard cases to hijack our MD at a rate of £350 a day, which I thought was outrageous. So I went and got my own friends that I go to the football with, and they did it for free.
But here's the thing. Adidas HQ called Tony and his team the North Mafia because they consistently overperformed while doing things their own way, usually without asking for permission. This is virtually unheard of in a £20 billion corporation.
So today we're asking, what happens when HR goes rogue?
Hello and welcome to Truth, Lies and Work, the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne and I'm a chartered occupational psychologist.
My name is Al and I'm a business owner.
And we are here to help you simplify the science of work.
Now our guest today is Tony Cooke. He's the author of Waggish Chronicles of a Maverick in a Corporate World and a former VP of Human Resources at Adidas, who spent decades proving that HR doesn't have to be the department that everyone dreads. His approach was to make HR more human by appealing to people's sense of humour and showing genuine personality.
What makes Tony's story really interesting is that his waggish approach didn't just improve employee engagement, it created a talent factory that is still producing leaders across the globe today. His initiatives were so effective that HQ kept stealing them and rolling them out worldwide.
After this very quick break, we're going to join Leanne as she interviews Tony. We'll discover why HR has become the villain of the workplace and what happens when you decide to change that reputation from the inside out. See you in a second.
My name is Tony Cooke. The 20-odd years in a huge sportswear company. So the role was HR. And interesting enough, the brand is a household name. But the interesting thing was that whilst the brand and the product was leading edge, it was then the personnel function wasn't.
And you're also now an author.
Yes, that much is true. This is the result of maybe 4, 5, 6, maybe for 6 years worth of work. And it came about because the VP in Global had challenged me to do it. And she suggested that because I was a good storyteller, I'd write a good book. And what I've tried to do in the book is 2 things, really. It's half memoir, so it's my story since I joined the organisation, but also I hope it's going to be a handy resource book for people as well, that they can click into various chapters if they were either about to do something similar, or they didn't know how to do it, or they wanted to learn. And I'll be very honest about it. We've made big mistakes, and to use a footballing terminology, I say we've made some own goals. So one of the chapters is called Own Goals and Other Calamities. So stuff that we had a go at and didn't work quite well. Stuff that we've done and made mistakes along the way. People can learn from that if they've got HR functions that are much, much smaller than ours and they're trying to do things themselves. So it's hit the streets. It's on Amazon. It's also in Waterstones. So it's for HR people. It's for people managers. It's for leaders. And it's written, Leanne, purely with a smile on people's faces. It's nothing heavy.
I want to carry on with what you were saying there in terms of this stereotype we have around HR people being quite rigid, bureaucratic, probably a little bit uninspiring at times. Where does that come from?
Personally, I think there's still some remnants of personnel in people's veins. I think it's a convenient positioning for businesses. I often think of HR as at Christmas you have the pantomimes, and there's always a pantomime villain. And I think sometimes it's convenient in any organisation for someone to be the one who gets the blame, for someone who's the baddie of the pantomime. And I think sometimes HR allows itself to be that way, where they're the ones who's being beaten over the heads. But it's convenient for HR as well, because if they want to be the lawmakers and they want to be the ones who put the rules in place, fine. But be careful, because you're making a position for yourselves that does lend itself to being humorless and does lend itself to not being flexible or creative. I watched a movie last night called The Assassins. And even in that now, there's a part in it where they say it's a good job we haven't got a HR function. So even on TV movies, they're positioning HR as the baddies and the pantomime villains. If you're naughty, you'll go into HR. If you are doing not the right thing, or you're not being woke enough, we'll send you into HR. And I think that's our fault. So what I'm trying to get people to have a think about is, look, you can be human the same as everybody else. If you want to go and stand up and belt out Oasis at a karaoke and make a complete show of yourself, why not? Because you're human the same as everybody else. And I think sometimes people forget HR people are human and they have frailties, but they should have colour about them. They should have personality about them. But I'm worried that we are all saying, well, HR are the lawmakers, and HR, if you're naughty, you go into there. Let's show a bit of personality as well, and let's partner with the business and champion people. We could do two things. We could champion people and partner with the business at the same time to get a win-win. I think there's a lot of perception of HR that we are for the business and not for the people. So if people say, well, I was thinking about putting a grievance in about something that isn't right in the business, but I won't, because HR's on the business's side. That's our fault, because that's the positioning and the brand that we are creating for ourselves. So I'm big on brand within HR. I don't think we spend enough time thinking about the way we brand ourselves and what our brand values are, because we think our branding must be for marketing. And it's not marketing. We want to be able to go out to our internal people. I like to call them customers, not staff. I hate that word, staff. But they're internal customers, because if we never had them, we wouldn't be here. There'd be no need for us to be here. So I want us to go out and ask them what they think of us. How brave would that be if we go to the punters and say, what do you think of us? What should we keep doing that you like? What should we stop doing that you don't like? And what should we start doing? All of this notion of actually being brave enough to go to people, Leanne, and say, we want to partner with you. We are human beings the same as you. How can we work together? Tell us what you think of us, and we'll create a brand that's in line with our corporate values, but also what our internal customers are wanting us to be, because ultimately we're a support function. We're back of house, we're not front.
I want to ask you, why is it important that we make this shift? What does it mean to the business commercially and the people in it if HR becomes a partner rather than, as you say, the villain?
The pantomime villain, yeah. So when they say, yes, our engagement levels are through the roof and everybody loves working here, and you say to them, says who? And they've got no evidence to show you. The only people who can tell you that are the employees. And you'd be surprised that I think sometimes it's convenient to say, from a people point of view, we're in great shape. Yeah, but it says who? And then you go and ask the employees, and the employees say, that's not the case. So it's a very, very dangerous assumption that companies make. Yet everyone's fine. Well, how can you tell us that? Well, nobody leaves. And I think the fact that people don't leave They might just be treading water and just staying in the same job, picking the pay up. So don't tell me that because nobody leaves, that engagement's through the roof. If we had better profile in an organization and a more front-facing profile, I think it helps from the minute that we bring new people in, because invariably when we recruit, HR will be there at some point when an individual starts in our organization. So HR have got an opportunity to be a brand ambassador. So if we bring somebody in, they start on Monday morning, probably the first person they're going to see at some point is HR. And the impression they will gain of that organization is through us. And that's where we get the chance to be front-facing rather than back office. So if you ever have a look at a welcome aboard session that they do, an onboarding session, you'll have a look and you'll see, is it overly administrative and box ticking, or is it more hearts and minds where people learn about the business and what the business is trying to do, spending time talking about the mission, the vision, the values of the organization? Because I look sometimes at the values of organizations and people pay lip service to it, and you see them stuck on a wall, or you see the pieces of paper curled up at the end where people have probably put it on the wall for years and years. And I look at some of them, Leanne, and they could be at home in any organization, be it a Ford Motor Company, Boots the chemist, they could belong to Greg's the bakers, because they're all the same. But HR's job, in my opinion, is to help individuals understand how they can help bring these values to life. So I think HR should wear several hats. Some of them, they don't like wearing hats, but apart from being the lawmakers, they should be brand ambassadors as well. They should be salespeople also for the organization. And then I'm thinking also from a recruitment point of view, we need to make people want to be HR people, and not just, at the moment in time, people, I think they love working in sales, or they love working in merchandising. There's not many people who are desperate to be HR. And when they do become HR in an organization, why can't we develop them to be more commercial so they could go into commercial roles? Because they just stay in that role and that's it. So from a developmental point of view, they become specialists and not generalists. But it would be brilliant if we had people within HR who bothered their arses more to learn about the business and to be more commercial, and then to have an appetite to go and take bigger roles in the business. I think that would be brilliant, that if people call themselves HR business partners and you sat them down and said, well, tell me about the business, what your key strategic priorities are. I did a talk for the CIPD not so long ago, and for fun, it was only for fun, I asked them, could they tell me what the turnover of the business was? Simple question. In other words, how much revenue do you generate? You'd be surprised the number of people who didn't know what the turnover was of their own business. So I think there's a lot of work to do there. If you want to be a HR business partner, learn about the business. Stop just thinking that you are HR and you're a rule maker. Go in there and try to understand who's the business's competitors, what obstacles are put on the business in terms of the way of driving new numbers through, winning new accounts. I think that would be exciting for HR, rather than just allow themselves to be categorized and pigeonholed as, oh, they're HR. We go in there if we're in trouble or if we have a query on our pension.
So Tony's just explained why HR has become the convenient scapegoat in organizations, the pantomime villain that everyone blames when things go wrong. But here's where his story gets really interesting.
Tony didn't just complain about HR's reputation. He decided to completely reinvent what it means to be waggish. And that led to some pretty unconventional initiatives that drove engagement through the roof,
including something called Dive In that had HQ thinking Tony had finally lost his mind and built a swimming pool. So let's just start off with what waggish actually means.
Can I ask you, I've heard you described HR as waggish. What does that mean?
The waggish piece is in a fun sort of way, getting the best out of people by appealing to people's senses of humour. So there's been a lot of times, occasions where I've seen lots of confrontational situations where you can take the sting out of them by being human and being lighthearted about stuff. So waggish for me means taking formality out of things. Clearly, there'll always be times when you have to be official and formal and straight-faced. But I've found that you can do an awful lot more. You win an awful lot more hearts and minds by showing that you're human. And that's why I come up with the word waggish. In other words, it's an informal way. And chronicle also in the title. Waggish Chronicle is informal ways of telling stories and telling the news.
What's your advice to HR leaders today? How do they prepare for the workforce of 2030?
Yeah, well, for 2030, embrace technologies by all means. But no matter what organization you're in, there's one common denominator: private sector, public sector, and it's about the frailties and fragilities of people. And wherever there is people, there is politics. So there's always a place for HR. I think my view for 2030, yeah, embrace all that's good, embrace working from home, embrace flexible working and everything else. But start working hard now to create a brand within your organization in HR where people can readily see what you're about, that you mean business, that you are a genuine business partner. You know the business inside out, back to front, upside down, and you're best mates with sales, with marketing. You don't have any foes. And this is another big one, go out of your way to establish relationships where you're being proactive rather than wait and sit in an ivory tower to people knock on your door. What's our policy on handling grievances? That time's gone now. We need to start being far more proactive and making. Another thing you should do, by the way, is set fire to the word HR and come up with a new title for 2030. We have personnel. We got battered over the heads with that. We've now got HR. People are toying with the idea of, I don't know if you've seen it, Leanne, people and culture is the sexiest one at the moment that I've stumbled upon. Culture's always on everybody's lips now. And the one I'm noticing more and more now is managing performance and getting good tunes out of people to drive the business forward. Well, you shouldn't be in charge of culture. Don't put yourself on as being in charge of culture, because there are people within the business who quite willingly will say, well, it says that in your title, so therefore you're in charge of culture. It's nothing to do with me, and they wash their hands of it. Put templates in place by all means, but you're not in charge of culture, HR. I'm awful sorry. It's the whole business that's supposed to be in charge of culture.
Those stories about the Addy Oscars and speed dating show exactly what Tony means by being waggish, using humour and creativity to solve real business problems. But here's the crucial question. How do you balance innovation with getting permission from HQ?
Because Tony learned the lesson the hard way. When his initiatives became so popular that other markets started copying them, suddenly HQ wanted to know why they weren't consulted first.
So when Tony was finally given permission to be creative, to make that James Bond movie about Workforce 2020, the results were spectacular. But it taught him something important about the difference between asking for forgiveness and asking for permission. We're going to hear that story after this very short break.
Tony, in terms of this way of working, you call yourself a maverick, and that you tested the patience of the senior leaders that you worked with. What was it that you were actually doing differently?
We felt that we weren't doing enough from a reward and recognition point of view, Leanne. And we felt that we were taking people for granted when they were doing early birds and late shows almost every day to be able to drive a number. And I didn't want the people thinking we were taking them for granted. So we created something called the Addy Oscars. And the Addy Oscars was essentially, at the end of every year, we'd pick up the values within the organization and we'd make a fuss of the people who had demonstrated these values the most. And we didn't put any money involved, or we didn't send them to Honolulu for a fortnight or anything at all. It was just the thought of them being made a fuss of and recognised in front of their peers, which is probably the best way to recognise anyone ever. And it gathered pace, and people look forward to it every December. And the hall where we did it would be packed to the rafters, and people were desperate to see if they'd get a mention or if they'd actually win something, because it would be the employees themselves who would nominate a Leanne Elliott. So with nothing to do with Leanne Elliott, it would be the people who you work around who would say, she's a brilliant collaborator. She's got so much respect. She's always willing to muck in with other people. She always has bags of ideas. Let's put her in for collaboration. So like on the Oscars, we would talk to the people who nominated Leanne Elliott, and we put it on a big screen, and we'd say, and the short list, the nominations for collaboration are, first one, Leanne Elliott. And it might be me, or it might be Al who nominates you. And we wax lyrical about the great things from a collaborative point of view Leanne has done. Yeah. And it was brilliant, and people loved it, and we put it on our internal comms. But it's something that we did in North Europe. Or another one we did was speed dating. We put speed dating in place, and the idea was we'd ask other markets if they needed any talent that we might have. And we'd say, we're looking for these talents in merchandising or sales, and they might have talents that we could bring on board. Brilliant idea, cost effective. Again, all it costs is the flight to get in, feed them, put them in a hotel, and they go home. So no big investments. But again, because it was an initiative that we put in place, I think people were copying it and people were wanting to take it on board. But the mistake we made, and it is a mistake, is that we never went and got holy water first and said, we're going to do this, if you don't mind. Let me sell it to you. Let me make sure you think it would work in other markets. We didn't. We just got on with it and done it. But not because we were baddies or because we were mischievous. We just thought it was the right thing to do in our minds. So our area of responsibility. But we didn't get permission for it. And we didn't ask anybody, was it okay to do it? Don't forget, we're not paying any money out. I think the only money we paid out was to give people a cappuccino and a lemon drizzle muffin at the end, but there was no one got any awards, so it was cost neutral. Anyway, the guys in group found out about it, and I was carpeted because we didn't ask for permission to do a reward and recognition type initiative. I think what if I may say this, can I say pissed off?
Yeah,
frustrated. Yeah. What pissed the group off, I think, most was I never went and asked for permission to do it because I just thought it was the right thing to do. Our guys loved it. But I think the straw that broke the camel's back was other markets, Leanne, started asking about it and how we did it. So they copied it. So half of Europe had Oscars and the group didn't know anything about it. So I had to tell them what it was, and then they pinched it off me, and they changed it from Oscars to Superstar. And then it became then a global HQ initiative. But that's an example of something that we did. Another one we did was the numbers weren't quite good, weren't quite good enough. So myself and the MD at the time came up with an idea called Target Busters. So we said, if we can quickly get a little bit more sales in, we'll reach budget, we'll reach our target, and it'll put us back in good shape for the rest of the year. A short initiative that paid for itself, but it meant it was an initiative we'd put in place and we didn't get blessing. And my learning is, and I put it in the book, if you're going to do new initiatives as a market while you're working for a HQ, you're going to have to play the game and give the impression that you want holy water over these initiatives rather than do it yourself. And we're not doing it ourselves because we're gangsters. We're doing it ourselves because we just thought it was the right thing to do. One of the values was creativity. So we thought, well, let's be creative. We never, ever went crazy with cash. And the things were always novel ways of doing things that meant that employee engagement went through the ceiling in terms of numbers. But the guys at Group would much prefer us to do more staid, more streamlined ways of doing things that the guys in HQ liked. The funniest one was when we created a thing called diving. Now, diving was because I felt that we weren't embracing diversity and inclusion enough. And I wanted to make sure that the people we had in the business were reflective of the consumers. So it meant that the people, all of our employees, I didn't want them to be stereotypical white males. I wanted them to be a complete mix right across the patch of all of our consumers. So I asked people to join me and created a team called Diving. Now, you probably worked it out. I pinched dive from diversity and I pinched in from inclusion. And the idea diving was you immerse yourself, you take chances, you throw yourself in. And we launched that. And it was the good thing was it was a coming together of people from every background you could think of, every single background. And we brought them in and we said, right, how are we going to fix things here? How can we make ourselves more diverse and inclusive? So we had a first meeting. We brought the board of directors in. They loved it. Great idea. And everybody bought into this notion of diving. And it was our initiative, but the people loved it and everybody has a voice. All it was a movement to bring in a fun, light-hearted way that sometimes very difficult notion of diversity and inclusion to life through the people. And everything we always did, it was the people, not the management team who brought the stuff to life. So if it was no good and it fell on its arse, it was because of us. If it was a great success, it was because of the people who brought it to life. Some didn't work, but I wanted to share them with people just to try and change this perception of HR as being very staid and very formal and humorless. So be assured there are HR people out there who've got a sense of humour. So I can remember a case when we were brought in as all HRs into Germany, and the challenge was paint a picture of what Workforce 2020 will look like. So this might have been 2018. We were given the task, what will it look like in 2020? What will HR look like? And the challenge was given to us by the head of HR Europe at the time, lady. And rather than do slides and paint pictures, the idea we had was that we'd make it into a movie in a James Bond sort of way. And we brought in our own people to be actors, whereby the MD was actually hijacked and kidnapped. And he played his part. And again, same story. And he was a good sport. He was a great sport because it meant he had to be tied up and rumbled into an old chest somewhere. And we had to do about 4 or 5 different takes. And he was full of cuts and bruises at the end of it, but it was a good sport. Now, she gave us permission to do that time, whereas previously we didn't. Now, because it was done with their blessing, it then became a group initiative. So we used that video that we made about a secret ingredient for what Workforce 2020 would look like and gave it a James Bond feel and spies. And we brought people in from Holland and somebody else came in from Prague to start it. And because she'd give us permission, I think she found some money for me, to get it edited and directed and stuff like that. That seemed to be a bestseller. But the learning for me was she told me to do it rather than me go and do it without getting permission first.
I have to ask you, what was the secret ingredient for Workforce 2020?
Well, the idea was that there was a nefarious gangster who'd heard about it, this secret ingredient, and he wanted to pinch it. And to pinch it, he went away and hijacked our MD. And unless we gave him the secret ingredients, he was going to kill the MD. And it was well received by everyone, to tell you the truth. But the ingredient was about developing people. The ingredient was about succession plan, about engagement, about people becoming generalists and not specialists. The ingredient was about not keeping people in the same role, maybe for more than 4 or 5 years. The ingredient was about zigzagging people developmentally. So rather than just develop vertically, they develop horizontally and in a zigzag sort of way, because it would be quicker to get them developed rather than just wait in the same department and just wait for opportunities to grow. We'd say, no, we're going to intervene and we're going to zigzag you across all of the business. So that was the ingredients, and this nefarious gangster was desperate to get hold of it so we could take it and he could go out and recruit the best people and have the best company and have the best numbers ultimately. We feel as though we have an obligation from an EVP point of view. So our employer value proposition, I wanted it to be leading edge. So anyone who went on to our EVP, I wanted them to see this video to see, Christ, these people mean business here. They are good business people, and they're embracing and bringing to life all the great things about people development. And you can see it in your very eyes. But rather than have 349 slides about what we do, we thought it'd be a good idea to bring it to life. And I have to tell you, by the way, Leanne, Elliott, how cost effective the HR team were when we done this video, because when we brought a group in from our production team from outside, to be able to get the MD hijacked, he felt that we would need 6 barely hard cases to hijack our MD at a rate of £350 a day. 6 at £350 a day, which I thought was outrageous. So I went and got my own friends that I go to the football with, and they did it for free. So we were all the time, trying to be cost effective at everything that we did. And I mentioned to you earlier that the MD, because he was that proud and excited of some of the stuff we were doing, he would naturally tell his colleagues and his counterparts when he was in MD meetings, oh, by the way, we're doing this, by the way, we're doing that. And the MDs clearly went back to their HRDs and said, there's a great idea there. You might want to go and see how it works, or reach out and ask for some advice or some tips, which they did, but they probably would remold it. So when we done the Adioscars, I'm sure they put their own little spin on it. And then before it was taken off us, don't forget, group called it Superstar. So I think it's a model that we would create, and we'd say, well, it's here. If you want to use it, by all means use it. But we never had ownership of it. I think these are ideas that we were just taking off the conveyor belt, and then the guys would get them and mold them, look at them, learn from them, or do something themselves in a similar manner.
You're clearly the type of guy, Tony, that asks for forgiveness rather than permission. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you manage to balance this innovation and actually keep your job? Was there any points where you're like, might have took that to the wire a little bit?
Yeah, there's been fallouts. There's no issues with that. And I think it was more frustration, because in the cold light of day, they would probably say when I was thrown back on the airplane to go home from Germany, it's a good idea. It really works well. It's cost effective. It does engage with the world of goods. It aligns people with our commercial objectives. The difficulty I had was I had a real stone in my shoe that we weren't encouraging people to be innovative and creative. So why have a value of creativity if you don't work hard to bring it to life, or you give people license to bring it to life? So when I was carpeted by people over in Germany, it was, I think the message tended to be, look, for Jesus' sake, will you just tell us first, or will you get blessing first? We love the ideas. And I think the other difficulty was when other markets heard about it. So, for example, the MD, when he went to MD meetings, would quite proudly say, oh, we put this in place.
Where's the balance between kind of, yes, asking for permission or just doing it anyway?
I think you learn that. You find it. And the art, I think, is to develop good relationships with the people who are in group. I think that's key. So, for example, with me, we had somebody in the group in Germany, HR, who did embrace creativity, but she'd allowed people to go away and be creative. So this time, you're actually being afforded the opportunity to be creative.
So Tony is waggish. He's a bit of a maverick. He often just does things without asking permission first. But the key question that you're asking, I'm sure, and we were asking is, did this work? Did his efforts pay off? Spoiler alert, yeah, they did.
And as an organisation, the reputation it has now in terms of talent and people development is phenomenal, isn't it? The track record in terms of leadership development.
On LinkedIn, I still follow the employees who are still in the organisation. And you're right. And I do regard it, and I say it on LinkedIn, it's a conveyor belt of people. That's another interesting thing, that I think we were seen as a talent factory. And the greatest kick I get, Leanne, is when you hear stories of people who've been on our conveyor belt who've gone into America into senior roles, Amsterdam senior roles. Lots and lots of them have gone to Germany into the HQ in senior roles. I heard a story the other week, someone's gone to South Africa now to take a senior role as well. And it's great news, because we felt, and I still feel, that learning and development and developing people, I think that's an expectation now with new recruits. I don't think it's a nice to have. I think when you come to an organisation as big as that one, and they're good talents, it's a hygiene factor now. I don't think it's a motivator. I think when you start in a new role, a business that size, you should have a real movie star approach to developing people. The only proviso is if someone says, yeah, meet me, I want to be developed, it means that you might be brought from one place to another. So the rule we had in place, meet me, I'm a talent, I want to be developed, I'm very, very mobile. And we come up with a role and we say, there's a role for you. Yeah, but I didn't want that. That's Moscow. I didn't want Moscow. I wanted Amsterdam. But you can't pick and choose where you go. We're a business. We're trying to drive a number here. But yeah, if we were developing people for bigger roles, the deal was if you come on board, we may need you to go to any part of the world. And that's why I'm so proud that you see lots and lots of people come off the conveyor belt. The biggest kick I get is to watch people go into rapturous applause when they see their colleagues in the business being recognised and rewarded for doing something great. For being really pleased when I could stop a cleaner in the corridor and ask them what their sense of purpose is, and they will tell you they want to be the best in the particular industry. And essentially, Leanne, in all honesty, to remember that we're only here once, so let's live every day as though it's our last and get a kick out of it and bring joy and watch Liverpool win the Champions League. There were loads of leadership programs that we had that we named after products, which was always well received. But we got to the training and development party late on. We weren't serious about training and development for a long while. And then I think people seen the value of it. Again, same story. Some of the training and development programs we started, like we call one Tomorrow's People. In essence, it means getting people ready for leadership in the fullness of time. And that was well subscribed to. Same idea. We did it. We thought it was the right thing to do. Group heard about it, and then group sent for the people. I think we partnered. You remember Dale Carnegie?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I think we did stuff with Dale Carnegie. So we didn't do it all ourselves. Dale Carnegie came in, and we put a program together called Tomorrow's People, which now the seniors, I mean real seniors, whose first taste of training and development was Tomorrow's People, which is great news, isn't it?
It's such a story of transformation, Tony, from the inside out. If there's somebody listening who is a HR leader who is maybe in the opportunity that you were in to try and drive this type of change, is there anything that you'd say, start here, or this works, or this is kind of the golden rule?
Well, the golden rule as will always be collaborate with the HQ or collaborate with seniors or collaborate with the decision makers. Even if, and I say it to you again, you think you're doing things for the right reasons, play the game and play fair. So find good partners in senior roles at an early stage would be one tip. Second tip is stop just thinking that you're HR and remember that there's a big bad world out there in terms of your organization. And you'd be so respected if you ask questions that were nothing to do with HR. So if you were to go and ask the salesperson, which markets are we trying to penetrate? Or you were going to ask product, what's our latest product coming out? You'll be remembered for being curious. And people will respect you for being intrigued by what's going on in the business. And then you then, from a HR point of view, might be able to be thinking about solutions for problems that are coming round the corner would be another tip. And the last one I think that has helped me enormously is let people see that you're human. So if you're a business partner, create partnerships with your business partners, but let them see that you are human the same as them. You don't have to think that you're a machine all the time, or that you haven't got bad days and good days, or that you haven't lost your temper with someone, or you didn't cry your eyes out at a movie that you're watching. Everyone is human. So, news just in, our HR people. So remember that, rather than think that you've got to have this aloof and never make mistakes impression or personality. You do. And people will warm to you more if they know how genuine and sincere you are as a person, as well as a professional in HR.
What's the mafia story? Were you genuinely accused of being in the mafia?
We had a management team, and the management team, essentially the three most senior was myself, the FD and the MD. And every year when we did our numbers and we did our performance, we would overperform. We'd always overperform. And we always used to have a little stash from our overperformance that we'd use for other things. And the group always asked us, have you got any money to contribute to any other parts of the organisation who maybe hadn't had such a good year as ours? And we'd say, no, I'm awful sorry, we haven't. We've spent it all, it's all gone. But we've made our contribution to you, so play fair, we've done that. And they'd say, well, what have you got in that pocket? And we'd say, nothing, it's empty. And they'd say, well, empty your other pocket out. And we'd say, no, it's empty as well. We've given you all that we've got. And then they couldn't understand how we were able to do so many fantastic numbers from a performance point of view. And so we were the second biggest market, but invariably, Leanne, our numbers were always brilliant. And it was because we had brilliant people. We had hearts and minds. They were all driven. They all had a fantastic sense of purpose. And that was the reason. That was only the reason. But we had a lady who come on board in charge of reward, and she had a call. It was one, the way it's managed in the matrix. So the head of the function is in the HQ, but the people live with us. So the reward person phoned our reward person and said, right, I want you to report into me any time these three people, so it was me, the FD and the MD, I want to know what they're doing. I want to know how they get the numbers. I want to know what they do over salary review. I want to know what happens when it comes to bonuses. And every single thing we done was whiter than white. Everything was always above board. But they just couldn't understand how we had such an amazing organisation. And we did, and it's no secret, do stuff sometimes our own way, but all above board. I've told you speed dating. I told you Adioscars. All the stuff that we done for the right reasons. And it turns out that there was a perception that we were called the North Mafia, North being North Europe, and us three were the heads of the families in the mafia because we did our own thing. We never told anybody. It was like a family. It was all close-knit. No one could get in, no one could get out. But we didn't know until this woman told us that was the title they had for us, that we were the North Mafia. So there's another film and there's another book maybe.
Tony, I know our listeners will want to learn more about you, your work, get your book. Where's the best place for them to do that?
The book is on Amazon, Leanne. The book is in Waterstones. I think on my LinkedIn, there's a link that sends you straight to Amazon. It's in paperback, it's in hardback. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to help anyone with any questions that come through your door, through this conversation, or they can ask me. More than happy to assist.
That was Tony Cooke. And honestly, if every HR department was half as creative and results focused as his team was, workplaces would be completely transformed, in my opinion.
Let's wrap up with our top 3 takeaways for leaders who want to create genuine change from within their organizations. And I must say, anyone who is familiar with HR 2.0, this aligns very nicely and really does show what a maverick and an innovator Tony is. So lesson 1, collaborate with senior stakeholders early. Tony's biggest learning was that even the best ideas need buy-in from decision makers. So build those relationships before you need them, not after. Lesson 2, learn the business inside and out. Don't just be an HR person. Be a business partner who understands revenue and competitors and strategic priorities. Tony challenged HR professionals to know their company's turnover. Do you? And lesson 3, show your human side. Stop being the aloof rule maker and let people see you're human with frailties, bad days, and emotions. People warm to authenticity, not perfection.
And here's the proof that Tony's approach actually works. Adidas became known as the talent factory, with a conveyor belt of leaders going to senior roles across America, Amsterdam, Germany, and all around the world, really. That's the business impact of making HR genuinely human at one of the world's most recognizable brands.
You can find Tony's book, Waggish Chronicles of a Maverick in a Corporate World, on Amazon and Waterstones, and connect with him on LinkedIn for more HR innovation ideas. As always, all the links you need are in the show notes.
That's all for today. Remember, HR doesn't have to be the villain. You can be the one who changes the show entirely. But of course, it's your call whether you're going to ask for permission first.
This is Truth, Lies and Work. We will see you next week.